Well, Tim,
Tim,
what's your topic?
My topic is arcades. Arcade games, arcade memories, anything you have about arcades. Because when I was young, I used to go to arcades a lot.
Okay.
Back when they were hip and cool. And even, just movie theaters would have these little arcades. They still do.
Sure.
There's a lot of places you go and there's arcade games. And I feel like they hold a very special place in my heart. Because going there with your friends and playing... The video games are awesome.
Right.
There's something special about arcade games, though.
Sure, they were a rip-off, and they were never as much fun as your video games at home.
because they cost money.
And they were a rip-off.
Well, I feel like earlier on in the 90s,
Sure.
they were ahead.
Sure. Well,
completely.
yeah.
And it's like back then, what I always find interesting is how much we enjoyed peripherals when we didn't have them.
Yep.
Now we all hate them.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. But back then it was like, oh my God, I can
It's got a
punch
machine
things.
gun.
It has a guitar. It has a, the virtual reality thing I can put on my head. And it's like now we like are like, ugh, about any of that.
Just let me use
But
the
back then
controller.
we'd pay the $1 for those instead of the quarter for the other games.
So my arcade story.
Mm-hmm.
So my family, every year we used to go in the summertime for some odd reason, because we grew up in a small town in Southern California where it was really, really hot and dry. So we thought, what better place to take a vacation than going out to Laughlin, Nevada?
Woo!
It's even hotter and even drier. And there's a river. So you're like, oh, okay, you get really hot and dry, you get the river. But I was like, I was really, how do we say, rotund little boy. So I didn't really
You weren't
like
shadowboxing
I didn't
yet.
like shaking my shirt off. And I was like, well, the only thing I really like doing is eating. And I discovered there was we'd stay at the Flamingo, and then 2 hotels down at the Edgewater was an arcade. So I was like, I'll go check out this arcade. And my mom gave me some money, and I went down there. It was the first time I discovered a little game called Street Fighter 2. And I was like, this is pretty cool. That dude in the red gi is kind of who I want to be right now, minus like the Tony Catan haircut, which is amazing. So I started playing it, and I got my ass kicked. But it was the only time in my life I've ever actually put a quarter down, knowing I was going to lose, and then said, I have to play this again. And then I remember I got a Super NES, and then Street Fighter 2 came to the Super NES, and I was like, that is it. I have to. And I only had like 3 games on the Super NES because all I did was play Street Fighter 2. It was that, and then there was another game called Virtual Racing, which I used to play constantly. It was one of those you sit in. Oh man, it was just
Sega game, right?
I think it was a Sega game, yeah. Predecessor to maybe Virtua Fighter. I'm not quite sure. No, that was PlayStation, wasn't it?
No, that's Sega.
Was that Sega also?
Virtua is Sega.
It's Sega.
That reminds me of, real quick, of Street Fighter 4 when it was first coming out, like way before it came out on consoles. It came out in Japan in arcades. And I remember San Francisco State was it was the first place in America you could play that game. And I was like, holy shit, that's really cool. I wasn't that into Street Fighter, but it's my school. So I went down. I remember seeing everyone play and putting the quarters down. I thought that was awesome because arcades are dead, but that was still going on.
I always thought the concept of the arcade was a lot better than the actual practicality of the arcade because it cost a lot of money.
Yep.
I remember I used to go to Disneyland. Disneyland used to have an arcade. Do you remember that?
I used to go to Star Wars.
I used to go to Star Wars. Is it still there? Yeah. Well, back in the day, you used to go up like an escalator, and they had the actual like Star Wars game. That was like
Foreshadowing. They've been working on that deal a long time.
Long time. And that was really cool. But it was like $1, and I'm like, I don't have $1.
Oh, you're talking about the Star Wars trilogy game?
Maybe it was
the one with the joystick, and then like one of the levels is like lightsaber.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that game was awesome.
But it was super expensive, and I was always like, this is cool. I think the arcade was supposed to be the place for kids that couldn't drink and couldn't go to bars. Like to have an alternative to the roller skating rink.
The kids that couldn't drink or go to bars. Well, not your 14-year-old friends.
The kids
the
kids that weren't old enough to like, you weren't sub 21, right? You were supposed to. I guess the arcade was supposed to be the hangout spot. Maybe it was in the 70s and early 80s, but by the time it got to me, it was just a fraction of what it used to be its former glory. I never got into them, sadly.
That was the big thing in Chicago. The suburbs was you had a birthday party. It was going to be at Enchanted Castle, or it was going to be at Galaxy Zone, or one of these places you go to that are, those giant like warehouses that are arcades and claw machines and all these other different things. So it got to be mundane that you'd go to, but you only went there once a year, usually for yours or somebody else's birthday party. And one of the trips there was one of my biggest life regrets. Not my biggest, but one of them that I still think back on of like, what a fucking stupid decision. And it went that
okay.
The games where you drop the token in and there's like the sliding shelf full of tokens that pushes other tokens down.
Gambling.
I was walking up to
Legal
one
gambling.
of them, and I walked up to it, and just as I got there, it started spitting out tickets, and it was just broken as fuck, and it was just spitting out tickets and they were just piling up on the floor, and I froze. And an Enchanted Castle employee walked by and goes, "Did you win these?" And I said no. All I had to say was yes. This is my token.
This is you think about this?
Yeah, oh yeah. Why didn't I
You
say
needed
yes?
like back then. You needed like 20,000 tickets to buy a bouncy ball.
I would have got him.
You could have walked away with an old GameCube game.
I could have won. I could have been a winner. I could have walked up there and actually had something.
See, my brain always goes like this. They would have figured me out. I
don't think they would have. There's no.
Like
what are they going to do? Go review security footage to see if I
That
put the
guy was
token
probably 17 anyway. What the fuck did he care?
Yeah, well, you don't think about it. You don't have that kind of thought process.
No,
there.
of course. Yeah, I think so. Street Fighter 2 is the seminal arcade game for me too, and I fucking loved that game. But there was a place called Time Out near my house on Long Island.
Named for the Zach Morris move.
Exactly. I used to go there in the late 80s with my brother, and my brother's a big gamer back in the day. And what I really loved about it, the reason arcades died, by the way, was because the NES era was the first era where there could be arcade parity between machine and console. If you remember correctly, like Pac-Man on Atari 2600 was considered an abomination. That game sucks, right? Like, but by the time you could get Pac-Man running properly on an NES, right? It's just like more powerful. When that kind of started happening, you didn't need arcades anymore. Arcade machines were designed to steal your quarters, yes, but it was also really satisfying. Like I loved Arkanoid and Galaga and Asteroids and all these kinds of games, that you can master on a quarter. Like me and Miss Pac-Man got to know each other very well.
Yeah, you did.
Because I was really good at it. But like it took a lot of money to figure that out. The only thing I know is that I want arcade machines. I just don't have anywhere to put them. They're cheap. I can get a Miss Pac-Man machine for like $500, and I would have that in a fucking heartbeat. Like Arkanoid machine, yes. Street Fighter 2, probably Street Fighter 2 Turbo, yes. Or Super Street Fighter 2, so we get everyone.
Oh yeah.
The bosses, and then the new 4 characters. DJ, who's the worst character in the world.
Absolutely. Fei Long was that.
T-Hawk,
in that one?
who's even worse.
Fei Long.
Yeah,
I wanted to master
Cammy.
Fei Long, but I could not master Fei Long.
I love Cammy.
But just the idea of I remember at the movie theater in high school. So this was later. This was when arcades were dead or dying. But they still had like Super Street Fighter 2 and all these kinds of machines. Just like we'd go to the movies early. I just put my quarter on the machine, walk behind, watch these usually terrible players play, step up, and then stay on the machine for a while. You can just keep playing, and then people would come and challenge you. That was fun.
That was cool.
And I miss the arcade. The arcade's an experience. Like there's so many people out there that their first console is like an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 2. Man, you missed out on the cultural aspect of gaming that has been replaced by conventions and cosplay. But I thought it was like much more subtle and much more cool back then. And yeah, so arcades, man, I love to hear. There's a few arcades that still exist that are huge. But they're few and far between.
There's a great one, and Tim, you'll appreciate this story. There's a great one in Las Vegas, Nevada. That has a lot of. I think it's called I forget what it's called. It's like a museum, but basically you can play all these old awesome arcade games. Anything you want. That hockey game, the big bubble. Where you could with the sticks. But so I went there for NAB one year, NAB, which is this big convention out in Vegas, and the Vegas Convention Center. It's not CES. It's actually like more professional. It's way more nerdy. I went out there one time with a group of buddies, and some of the guys we were hanging out with were like, "Hey, we're going to this arcade," and I was like, "Well, I'll go. It's Vegas. Like, take a break from the normal
Vegas, go to arcades.
Vegas activities." So we're roaming around the arcade, and they serve drinks there also. So it's like one of those places if you're 21 and over, you can go and have a cocktail while you're playing arcade games. And we make the whole rounds, and like for some odd reason, it took us about 30 minutes to discover this one cabinet where we get around there, and it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
Oh yeah, the arcade game.
Yeah. We, like the core group of us, froze, and I was like, "You guys start. I'm gonna go get backup. We're gonna beat this game today," and we did.
See.
That's awesome. How much money?
Awesome.
I think actually, it wasn't that. Actually, when you're like older, it wasn't that hard to beat. Like
it's not hard. It just takes time.
It just takes time. We just kept plunking. It's maybe like $10 collectively. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kept getting the bad character. I kept getting Raph though. I hated that.
Yeah, the experiences of arcades. Like, there's some things to me that I feel like everyone has experienced if you ever went to an arcade, especially if you're young. Like just sitting at one of those racing games. Not playing it, just pretending you're playing it.
Yep.
Like you do that. The thing where like you use all your quarters, you're playing a game, you're like, I'm determined to beat this, and then you run out of quarters. It's that countdown screen, and you're like, I need to keep playing.
What do I do?
And you're like looking around, and none of your friends are around, and you keep hitting the button. And it's like continue 10, 9. You hit it again 10, 9. You're like guys, just like hoping for a quarter. And like, there's things like that, and like exactly those 4-player games: The Simpsons, X-Men, Ninja Turtles.
Simpsons was awesome.
Yeah, Simpsons was awesome. Just like TMNT. It's funny. One of my memories is the opposite in the sense that like when I'd be on a Street Fighter and I'd be like on Balrog or Vega, whatever, and then I would die, and someone would be like, "All right, I'll step on the machine." I'll be like, "All right, and it'll be like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, oh, you know, like make that noise and it'd be over, and I'm like, you can start over.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like,
Of course you did.
because I beat like 10, 11 dudes at that point. I'm not going to give you the fucking glory of fighting Saget. You're gonna go to fucking Soviet Russia and fight Zangief first.
Or E Honda.
You fucking asshole.
Oh, man.
I had another great
Give you
memory.
the honor.
We used to go back to that same arcade like over and over again. We went to Laughlin, Nevada for like 5 years in a row, like straight. And I'd always go back to this thing. And I tried playing. I would always be Street Fighter. Like it was always Street Fighter from the second I saw it. Just took me. But right next to the Street Fighter cabinet was the Mortal Kombat cabinet. And I couldn't stand it because remember I had that weird button layout where it was like you press this one to kick up, you press this. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It's not intuitive.
It's not. Mortal Kombat's not intuitive.
It wasn't intuitive.
It's also not good.
I don't know where you guys come down on the side of Mortal Kombat versus Street
That's
Fighter.
not a question. Who the fuck comes down on Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat's cool. Like I liked Mortal Kombat, but like,
As somebody who was
you
never
really?
good at fighting games, I liked Mortal Kombat more. It was just more entertaining to watch.
did you
Well,
pretend?
that's
more
true.
entertaining
It's
to
more
play.
entertaining to watch.
Get
It's
to a
definitely-
fatality,
It's
do something
cooler.
else.
Did you
Yeah.
did you pretend you were Johnny Cage when you were a kid?
No, I was a big fan of Goro, right?
Goro?
Yeah.
Goro.
Yeah, Goro was awesome.
Goro
you couldn't
was
even play
whack.
as him, and then remember, and then there was like the code where you could make Shang Tsung turn into him at the end. My friend one time did that fatality, and then was like, I don't know how I did it, stumbled upon it. And then you look it up, and it's like you have to hold a button for 30 seconds. Like, what are you fucking doing? There's no way you stumbled upon that.
That's amazing.
Yes, I remember getting Mortal Kombat clear as day on Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo one was the one with no blood. I don't know if you guys remember that. And
Genesis.
I had Mortal Kombat 2, but I had all the Street Fighter iterations, so it was like 2 and then Turbo and then Super. But I remember
2 is the best.
I remember playing these games on Genesis at my friend's house. He had Street Fighter 2. Genesis Street Fighter 2 was the fucking wackest shit ever, dude, because there was only 3 buttons on the controller. So you had to hit this. You couldn't pause the game. You had to hit the start button to switch between kicks and punches. I'm like, this is the wackest, wackest shit I've ever played in my life. And then I bring my and then I'd bring my Super Nintendo over, and I was like, this is the better system for fighting games. Let's just be honest, it's a better system for everything.
Yeah.
And you know, Mortal Kombat had its time. It was the Sega to Nintendo, and I don't mean that in a literal sense. I mean it was like the difference. It was
Right,
the
it was
change.
different. There was,
it was the
blood,
challenger.
there's something happening. Yeah.
But like Genesis, no one gives a fuck about Mortal Kombat, and everyone will always give a fuck about Street Fighter, just like they care about Super Nintendo. Mortal Kombat has its day still. It'll come back. There'll be another
just
Mortal
did.
Kombat game. There's
that
Mortal Kombat
reboot
versus
did really
DC.
well.
Yeah, but you know what's going to do 10 times better than that? Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and
believe you.
Yeah,
Let me ask this question. Old school.
yeah.
Let's go around the table.
Old school.
You got to pick one Street Fighter game. What's the best Street Fighter game?
That's not even a question. It's the final Street Fighter 2.
So Super Street
Super
Fighter.
Street Fighter 2.
Super
Or Ultra.
Super Street,
Was there a
Street
Turbo
Fighter
Hyper?
2,
Hyper Turbo?
Oh yeah, Hyper Edition.
Turbo
was-
Edition.
Oh, yeah.
See, I
No,
never-
Hyper. Yeah.
Those went too fast. I like.
Well,
the
that was
old
that's
school-
Capcom being Capcom.
Yeah, I just got hell. Kids are
They've
too fast
always
with this now. Let's
everyone
tweak it
always
out.
complains about that. Like, look, why are they releasing Resident Evil 5 17 times? And this, I'm like, they've always done that. There were 6 Mega Man games in 6 years.
Capcom's
But
going
when
to
you,
Capcom.
are you talking
Yeah.
about fast, meaning the game speed, right?
The game was actually sped up. So like
Yeah.
if you go back and play Street Fighter 2, it's like you are on Quaaludes.
No, exactly.
It
Well,
is,
hence the
it's
turbo.
It's a strategy based
Yeah,
game.
it's slow. It is slow.
It is slow.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which I liked because that's how fast my brain works these days. Always has, always will.
Well, it's harder, I think, too, than Turbo and Super. Well, I remember when Super Street Fighter 2 came to SNES, I was like, this is fucking up. That is the ultimate version. That to me is the ultimate fighting game. It's got a huge roster, so it's 16 characters.
Yeah.
And 16 stages.
Do you remember having the Callus?
Yes.
Did you ever have the
Yeah,
Callus?
right here.
Yeah.
Right, I had it right
You'll
here.
see it would be
My
here.
friend, who I thought at the time was a genius, and I don't know what he's doing now. I think graphic design, but
Quaaludes.
he bought a glove, cut the thumb off of the glove, and would just wear the thumb when he would play with it.
I did something similar for Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Really?
Yeah. Like I had like these weird ass glove things that I like cut certain parts of because my fingers are getting messed up.
See, I
you were
went
balling.
for Mario Party. I wore the fingerless gloves so that I could rotate the joystick on the N64 because I did at one point cut a perfect circle out of my hand from doing that too much.
I would pay to see you wearing fingerless gloves while playing Mario Party.
get me both.
Mario,
We're
dude, the
all set.
original Mario Party was excellent. What a great game. The
There's a bunch of
N64
them.
had all of these awesome games that were like what we thought were going to be one-offs, and they ended up being these things that they
Franchises.
fucking completely drove into the ground.
Smash Bros.
Yeah, like Smash
Yeah.
Brothers is a good example of them not driving something into the ground, I guess. But yeah, Mario Party was the perfect example of like, what in the flying fuck is this game? and why do I love it so much? I used to.
You're trying to explain to friends how to play, and you're like, but at the end, it doesn't really matter, and there's like random shit's gonna happen. Don't worry.
Yeah, it was so fun. That game was so fun.
Doesn't matter if you
N64
inflate
was.
the thing.
I mean, GoldenEye obviously is the epitome of that, but N64 was just the ultimate sleep over at your friend's
Yes.
house
Yeah,
with
exactly.
with 3 buddies. And,
WCW and
undeniably.
WO Revenge, like you got everything you
Was
wanted.
it the first console with 4 players plugging in the controller? Or was
It was
that
the first with
one with
native.
4 built in. Yeah.
built in? Yeah.
You could have the
So
good.
the multi-tab on
What?
SNES.
Talk about the most genius marketing tool ever. Because I was like, 4 slots, 4 different colors of controllers. I like agonized over the colors that I was going to buy,
Yeah.
and then of course you couldn't. You like, oh, you're lucky if you got a red, right? You're like, oh, like when they first came out, it was like the stock was.
I
not
loved
great.
my blue controller so much.
I had a red
I'm all
one.
about that atomic purple.
You went purple.
That way you could see
Well,
through it, right? That was
Yeah, the
Yeah.
see-through one.
That wasn't until later though. The original colors were just like red, green, blue, and
Yellow.
gray.
They had,
Gray.
they had-
Yellow.
yeah, they had that horrible, like,
Donkey Kong
hideous.
one.
Yeah, that
banana
was for
one.
Donkey Kong 64.
Oh
right?
god, it's gross looking.
God, I want. So I was like,
It was
I mean,
like 3 bananas though.
It was gross looking.
Oh, and then
It looked gross.
the extension, the 4 megabyte
Expansion pack.
expansion pack.
God. Perfect Dark,
you had to
Majora's
pay for
Mask.
Perfect
Yeah, I
Dark,
lent that to my buddy in high school so he can play Majora's Mask, and then I never got it back. So when I went, I went in college to play Majora's Mask, it like wouldn't work, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I opened the slot up, and it was gone. I was like,
There's an IOU in it.
"Yeah." I have. I think I've told this story before about N64, but we only had 3 controllers, and we used to play GoldenEye. And we,
It's the worst.
my
Why
friend-
would you do that?
So
Get another
my
controller.
friend was really into like San Francisco Rush or whatever that game was, so he had a steering wheel controller. So we'd use the steering wheel controller as the 4th controller, and you got so like it was crazy how good we got at playing GoldenEye with a steering wheel. Like there was like a pedal to like move, and like you would like use the buttons on the controller to like use your guns and stuff like that. And it used to be the penalty to like play. Like the 4th place player would automatically get the steering wheel, but then there would be like fights over using the steering wheel because it was actually like somewhat more efficient. Like once you like really learn how to use it, so we always had 3 controllers. But my buddies and I still bring that up.
That's great.
Like where you use the steering wheel.
That's awesome.
To
That's
play
really
GoldenEye.
cool.
But didn't you guys feel slightly slighted by the fact that they built that little top compartment into the N64, knowing that they were going to sell that thing?
See,
to
that's
you
the thing.
a year
Nintendo's
later?
done that with every freaking system.
Man, that was annoying.
There's always some random bullshit. Like the GameCube, it's like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of. There's like so many slots in the GameCube. I don't even think all of them ended up being used.
And then Motion Plus on Wii.
Oh yeah.
No.
Well, I mean that's different. Like that.
No,
that
that-
was just an add-on. But
But this is an add-on, so you couldn't play certain games without it.
no, but I mean
play
like
Zelda.
these when they first sold these systems, there was random ports, just holes that are like, what are these?
You're
gonna
like,
be
what
filled
is that
with
for?
later?
But
Yeah,
they still
how
have
little
today.
it was, like, what is this
The
for?
Vita had that port
Yeah.
on the first run that
Yeah, no one even knows
ever
what it
used
is.
No, you never did.
I
anything.
I have no idea what that's for.
Yeah.
So yeah, Street Fighter. I don't know. Street Fighter 2 is always going to be the ultimate fighting game and the ultimate arcade game for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
When I think back to games, like for me at the arcade ride, it was Golden Axe. Golden Axe, me and my friends would get down and
Golden
kill.
Axe is great.
Yeah, I remember when that came to Genesis, playing that nonstop too. And Spy Hunter, we were big fans of Spy Hunter.
Spy Hunter just annoyed me.
Yeah, a little crude for me. I didn't.
It was simple, but
Yeah.
like the main, like there you go, thank you. That like immediately I smell the cigarette smoke. But like that was the thing
way
is
too
like
old to be in the arcade. Like,
exactly
"Hey, kid, you gonna play
for
Spy
us
Hunter?"
like the actual like day-to-day arcade thing wasn't like birthday parties. It was that we used to go camping. Like my parents had an RV, so I'd always bring friends and we'd go with my parents. Obviously we were like 7 or whatever to Jellystone National Park, which is the Yogi Bear like themed campgrounds or whatever. And then like at their like ranger station, which is like, you know, their little convenience store, they had the arcade there. So you'd get there, have all these quarters and go there over the weekend and drink a million Dr. Peppers and play Spy Hunter and Golden Axe.
baller.
Yeah, Golden Axe was good. All 3 of those games were really good on Genesis. There weren't many good Genesis games, but those were 3 of them. Phantasy Star games were pretty good too.
I used to play Rampage every once in a while. I didn't even like it. I was like, it's
That's
open.
so
It's
funny. That
open.
is so true. It's just it looks cool.
No one's on
Like,
this
the
machine.
art on it's so
All right,
awesome.
All right, cool. Oh god.
And
I died.
You choose the lizard, and at the end she's a naked woman
Yeah,
who covers herself.
exactly.
But like when you're a kid, you're like, oh my god.
Going back to that, like Cruising USA and all those games, like you would want to play just to like have the girl come out at the end, and it was all
Yeah.
pixelated. It's just like, what am I doing with my life?
Sad.
Bill
This is-
Clinton. If you beat that game, you end with Bill Clinton in a hot tub with girls, and it makes no sense.
Doesn't need to make
Someone
sense.
like
Yeah.
us that was our age when that game was made was like, how should this game end?
Yeah,
And they were probably high, and they were like Bill Clinton in a hot tub with chicks.
Do it. Run with it.
Definitely.
and I love the sounds of arcades. Like there's just always so much going on. You hear
The
like
clinks,
the pinball
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
and all
yeah.
the clinks and stuff, and then all of a sudden Daytona. It's like what? Why is that happening every 5 minutes?
I forget. Have you been to Japan?
No.
You got to go to a Japanese arcade.
Yeah.
The Japanese arcade is still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And all the cabinets, first of all, the first thing you notice is that everything's sit down. There's not a lot of standing cabinets. So you sit down. And there's ashtrays everywhere, of course, because they smoke religiously inside. But it's a really cool experience. I got a lot out of that.
Yeah, when we were in Japan over Thanksgiving, we went to a bunch, and like me and Christine were playing one where we got in, and you close the little drape, and it's a haunted house game with zombies or whatever. But we're playing in like, for some reason, Christine didn't really like read what was gonna happen, so like she knew it was gonna move, but we got in, and like the seat starts rumbling, and then like the zombies smashed the glass, and there was air cannons that like shot the air, and she's like screaming. I'm like, what did you think was gonna happen? I'm shooting these zombies.
Get your gun, woman! Fucking stop bellowing!
Nut up! We need to beat these things.
Yeah, DDR was a big thing for me too. Like, and all the music games in general, and at arcades.
Actually, I like DDR.
So like that was
I would pay to see you do
resurgence of
DDR.
arcades.
I was good at DDR.
With Greg's, fingerless glove.
I had the pad for PS1 and PS2. My sister and I used to play it.
When we were in New York,
I was gonna say it was you, right?
I destroyed Mike Aransky in DDR because Mike Aransky is also really good at DDR.
There were air quotes there if you're listening on Bandcamp.
I take all the things back I said about paying these two guys to see their former glory. I would legitimately start a Kickstarter campaign to get $5,000 to film Mike Aransky playing DDR.
Yeah, Mike Aransky looks exactly like the name sounds.
You would think.
Yeah.
It's true. I told you that my goal in life is to start a show just called Aransky. It's just about Mike Aransky. He's an amazing human being.
He really is. I love that guy.
He's the world's best dad, and he's just a stellar guy. Google him.
Something also really special about arcades that I know everyone shares is everybody, once they hit like the age of 12, everyone thinks they know the secret to getting the most tickets for the least amount of coins.
See, I never cared about the tickets.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe, I don't know, it might be a generation thing because like
tickets were a big deal, man. That's what we were out for, and you didn't care about the prizes. You wanted the glory.
You just wanted to do that shit. And it's like once you become a like older person, you're not gonna play all these games just for fun. You're doing it for the tickets, and it's that damn Wheel of Fortune game where you hit the thing and everyone swears they're the best at it. It's like, it's not freaking hard, guys. But everyone takes so much pride in being able to get the jackpot 1 out of 10 times every time. Like, dude, I'm so good. I got it. It's like, yeah, it took you 10 freaking times. But good for you. Good for you.
See, I still to this day get sucked in by the claw game.
See, and my thing about the claw game is I used to be really good at the claw game. And I because what would happen is I would inevitably get bored at Walmart while my parents were shopping. They'd give me quarters and I'd go to the claw game. So I did get good enough to where I was winning all these prizes, bringing them home, and then I'd give them out to kids at trick or treating or donate them somewhere else. And I had forgotten about this like skill because you forget about it that you're now inherently awesome at the claw game.
Right.
But then I remember, I'll never forget it, in high school, we were leaving Target or whatever, and my friend had gotten ahead of the group and was up at the claw game. And he's like, man, look at that Wonder Woman thing. And I'm like, oh. And I put in a quarter, did 2 moves with the claw and go, dun, 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 Wonder Woman. And it just picked up Wonder Woman and pulled her out and dropped it from this guy, and he freaked out. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
What is
still got it.
What's the
Still
key to
got
the claw game? There's a technique.
The claw game used to piss me
You gotta
off.
have the eye. You gotta have the eye.
Yeah, but the claw game used to piss me off because there's so much frivolous shit going on with the claw game. Because like you would get it right over. Like I understand what you're saying. You'd like it would catch the corner of your eye and you'd look at it and you'd be like, that thing's peaking up high enough. I can get that thing.
If the claw turns,
yeah, like and then you'd approach the machine, but like the claw would always come down like in the machines and it would be like me.
Yeah. It
or it would be like all like fucked up. You know, like
giant little finger just coming down like, fuck you.
Like this. Turns it thumbs up and goes right back.
It always had such like a weak little grasp. It would like touch stuff and then like graze off it.
And like drag it.
Yeah.
And then like knock everything down.
I don't think I've ever once picked anything out of that damn machine. Never once.
I think I've won a few times, but not many. No, not many at all. Because there was a diner in New Hampshire when I lived there that had the claw game. I used to go there like all the time with my mom, and I used to play it every time I was there. Every time I spent, $50 total on that thing over like the years. Won maybe like a shitty teddy bear or something like that.
See, that's the worst thing about the arcade, like the tokens and the tickets and stuff. It's just like you can buy any of these prizes for way less than you're doing this for.
What's the skill?
Yeah.
That was the thing I had to remind myself when we were down for the gauntlet shoot.
Yeah.
And we went to the...
I have a picture of you upset that you lost this
We
game.
went to the gauntlet and we filmed the gauntlet and then we went out one of the nights to go do laser tag. And it was us with everybody. And while you're waiting, because you have to wait for like 30 minutes on each side of this stupid thing for some reason, they had a machine there that wasn't the claw game. And instead, I'd never seen it before, but it's basically like all this shit is lined up right with like peg holes in it. And then you have one peg. that you move around and then try to glide into the hole and get whatever it is. And I was intently trying to win these PSN gift cards.
Yeah.
Just to do it, just to have them and like be able to tweet that I did it. And it would just be like, I'd just be a fraction off and like hit the top of it every time. I'm like, God damn it.
No surprise there.
Shut up.
That was the night me and Kara,
Fell
my
in love.
girlfriend. No, that was when we first started like talking and stuff. Laser tag.
My
Is that what they
girlfriend.
call it nowadays?
My girlfriend.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to light gun games,
Yeah.
just in general.
I like the
Why?
Why?
Light gun games? Oh, you mean games that like the Terminator game?
Yeah, where you have the
use light
gun and
guns.
you're
What do you
shooting.
think I meant
Those
by
are the
that?
worst. Those are the worst.
I don't like the I don't,
Time Crisis.
Time Crisis is the worst.
Time Crisis is
dude.
pretty whack. I mean,
Doesn't
it's
make
good,
any
but
sense.
Holy shit, you guys! Are you serious?
I never
yeah,
liked
Time
it.
Crisis is a little
I
whack.
like Time
Dude,
Crisis.
House of the Dead is the ultimate.
yeah, House of the
the
Dead.
ultimate.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
the ultimate.
Yeah, but Time
light gun.
Crisis had the thing, which is another thing everybody fucking knows.
what the fuck's the thing?
Like you reload and use your finger like to hit it really
okay,
fast,
okay.
so like you do it as much as possible. And it's just like you're constantly fucking shooting.
Maybe I didn't know that. Maybe I didn't know
The
about
one
that.
You never beat Time Crisis on one quarter. You ain't living right, dog.
The one I played.
No one's beat Time Crisis on
Sean
one
Finnegan
quarter.
did.
Sean Finnegan didn't
Sean
beat
Finnegan
shit.
plays Time Crisis.
Sean Finnegan likes hiking.
We gotta get another
Geeksterminds.com/,
shirt.
GameOverGreggy.
Sean Finnegan beat Time Crisis in with one quarter.
What the fuck were you doing?
We've talked a lot of shit about Sean Finnegan on this show. But if one man can beat it with one quarter.
But he is the OG.
One
He's
of
the
the-
preeminent Time Crisis.
One of the
player.
games I liked, I didn't like a lot, but I remember it was like one of the premium games, or it might have been like $2 or something crazy, was the Mad Dog game that was all like, it was live action. Like it was like using that technology where they were coming out and they were like, it was an old Western thing. You got to pull up your gun and shoot them and stuff and get them to tumble off tops of buildings and stuff. I
Yeah,
remember it was
yeah.
incredibly tough and eventually came for PlayStation Move. But
Yeah, it did.
that I remember being so blown away with, and then eventually like buying a similar game for like my computer at home, and it was just like the worst shit ever of some guy who's like some security guard who's like, the burglars are in there. You like go in and you're like shooting the hostages by accident. All this crap is terrible.
Yeah, the hostage, like in Area 51, that was fucking awesome. That was also that like live action-y weird shit.
I
This is
remember
one
that
game,
one. That one I actually
Carnival,
liked.
that they had at the round table near my house, and my god, I love that game. It's like Carnival but evil. You get that, Nick? It was good.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I
it was
I
real
got
good.
the
So I love
good-
that
good
game.
name.
Two games I
was
lo-
your? Sorry, what was your? I gotta get you guys. I never played this game, but I always wanted to, but it was way too expensive. What was the game? It was kind of holographic. Was it Dragon's Lair or Dragon's Quest, something like that, where it was like,
We're talking about the one that was animated.
Dragon Slayer is like the whole
Yeah, that's the-
animated.
that's-
yeah,
the
yeah,
animated
yeah. But
one.
wasn't it? I think there. I remember there being one where like
Holographic or like Pokemon cards, Nick.
no, you looked at one where it was like it looked like it was projected. It was crazy stuff. Oh, look at
That's
it.
a Virtual Boy.
It might have just been the Game Boy.
It was
The two-
Wario's
The
Wood.
two arcade games I remember being in love with, but only like playing once, and then, so I have no real gauge on if they were good. Was number one the Superman arcade game, which is old, the older one, where like you could play with a friend, and then one of you was Superman Red, one of you was Superman Blue, and all I really remember about it was flying up the side of a building and like you're shooting things with heat vision or whatever. And the other was the real Ghostbusters arcade game, which I also remember being awesome, but I can't speak with any confidence if it was because I was a dumb kid.
Power Stone was the first arcade game that blew me away in the sense of like, whoa, this is an experience that I fucking love. And this is, for people that don't know what Power Stone is, it's essentially Smash Bros. But in 3D and just fucking awesome.
Yeah, Power Stone was legit. Power Stone made it my Dreamcast go. You know what I mean? I love Dreamcast. A lot of people don't know that about me. Loved Dreamcast. And Power Stone was like one of the. I was there, $99.99. I bought that shit. Day
Nice.
one.
Nice.
I loved the Dreamcast, man, because that was the first time a console came out, and I'm like, I have money, I have
Yeah.
a job,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
buying
I'm
this
gonna get this
motherfucker.
thing.
And I bought like so many Dreamcast games. That thing died a terrible, grisly death. But Power Stone Power Stone 2 were excellent games. I don't know why that series never came back. Like that's a good game.
Didn't
man.
it come back on PSP?
PSP, yeah, but they were ports, and
Yeah.
like I'm surprised that there's nothing like no new Power Stone game. You know?
There's Power Stone Golf now over. No.
And also Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and Marvel vs. Capcom 1. But 2, really, I remember just being at the arcade and seeing that. Like, that game really was my first introduction to comic characters, I think. Like, I mean, there was the cartoons and stuff.
Sure,
but like,
sure.
that is what got me. That's totally what got me into the obscure characters and like being able to know all these like random people. And even for video games too, it's like, who the fuck is BB Hood? I still don't know what game she's from, but like, she was legit.
BB Hood is Darkstalkers.
Oh, well,
There you go. Now you know.
education.
Knowing
Oh,
sense
sorry, I'll be
about it.
right back.
But it's your topic.
I know, we're right back.
You got to fill your water.
Yeah.
You could just drink some Knob Creek.
Oh,
I'll just say this about MVC2. It's really technical, very hard game. But we talk about fighting games that matter and OG fighting games, and obviously Street Fighter 2 is really the seminal fighting game. But in terms of the oldest game that is still legitimate that people still play competitively, MVC2 is never gonna die.
Yeah.
That game is just outrageous. By the way, that your shout wipe did fucking nothing. In fact, it looks worse now.
Well, we had to try something. You don't just watch the fire burn uncontrollably. You got to fix it up. And that's what I did. I made a move. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on the Game Over Greggy Show.
Can't wrap it up. Don't do that.
Well, he's got to go still. I'm just filling time.
No,
I was going to do
it. Let's just stay here.
Well, I want to do the promo. You got
Superman.
Get it at GameOverGreggy.districtlines.com every Friday. Go to youtube.com/GameOverGreggy. Go to districtlines.com.
I prefer dead air.
/GameOverGreggy. Nick's not here. We just shut down. We're just like, well.